Hello everyone. So today let us talk about owning your own files, and I think I have been talking about it for many years. But today I actually wanted to share something. I have been using Google Drive for many years. In fact, from the very day it was launched, I still remember. It was, I think, sometime in early 2000s, or I think it was somewhere around 2007 or 8. I'm not really sure the exact date, but I have been using Google Docs since the beginning. And if you are a Google email or Gmail user, I'm sure you're also using Google Drive. And Google Drive is actually not bad. It will solve it solves a problem because when you are looking for a way to store files, and not only storing files, I think it is also about collaborating with others. Now, when I was doing anything like planning the work, or maybe if I'm working on some idea and I want my my colleague or my friend to work along with me, uh, that is where Google Doc really was one solution. I mean, there were always different ways to collaborate. I mean, if you want to collaborate on, let us say, some uh, document, then you don't really need to use a Word document or maybe a Google Doc. You can always work on a text file, text-based format, and you can use something like maybe GitHub, for example, or Bitbucket or GitLab or any, or maybe you can self host your own repository. So that is also one area where I think using text based files is always recommended, because if you can because when you're talking about text based files, you have the information in a text file, and that is why I use org mode. Org mode is great because it is everything nothing but text, and you can do wonderful things when it is a simple text file, not a binary file, because when you have a text file, you can not only modify it, you can export it to different format like HTML or maybe PDF, or maybe if you want to uh, publish a blog like I do. Now, I have always, as I mentioned, I have been using Google Drive for many years, and I am now slowly. I mean, it is a bit difficult, but I have been trying to slowly move away and stop using Google Drive completely. Although I still use it, and I try not to use it, but in the past few months, I am kind of forcing myself not to use it at all. Of course, I use it only in those cases where the other person is asking me to use it. For example, if I know the other person is probably uh, not tech savvy, or maybe I'm working with a client, or if I'm working with a colleague, or maybe your friend who is much more comfortable using Google Drive, then I use it. I'm not really against the idea of using Google Drive or something similar, like maybe Excel or Word. I mean, I use it if I have to use it, but for my own personal files, I I have been trying really hard to not use these things at all, because because you don't have to. In case you are just doing things for yourself, then you can definitely just get away with using other things like your own computer, for example, because if it is nothing but your own files, you can definitely um, store them on your computer, or maybe your hard disk, or maybe on your own server, and there are ways to sync. And last year Google announced that they will stop the unlimited photos, and since then, although I have been using photos, but I only started using photos when I switched to uh, Android phone. I have always used BlackBerry, by the way. And when you're using, if you are, or if you ever use BlackBerry, BlackBerry was great for doing one thing, and that was emailing and communication, and it had a keyboard, but it was not really it was obviously not great for apps. Although in BlackBerry OS 10, there was always a possibility to install your own Android apps using the jar file, jar, no, not jar file, but those APKs. So there was always a possibility, but it was not really a smooth experience. My last BlackBerry phone was BlackBerry Passport, and it was also great, but it was again not awesome when it comes to using Android apps. And if you're using Google Photos or Google Drive for syncing the files, then you need. I think it is always good to have like a native Android app on native platform, a phone that supports Android natively, not the workaround. So I only started using Android phone I think in 2018, and it was I think 2018 and 19, those 2 years when I did use Android. Not even 2018, sorry. I think it was like 2019. So it was only like 2019 and 2020. So I tried using Google Photos for a while, but of course I always had my photos on my own hard disk somewhere. I don't really have like a RAID setup or some sophisticated file storage, network file storage on my local home network. I just use hard disk lying around, and I basically sync them. So I thought today I'll talk about how I am moving away from Google Photos as much as I can. So starting with, of course, what kind of files are we talking about? So when we talk about files, we normally have things like PDFs. So PDFs are something. So usually there are two type of PDF files. One that you will receive from someone, the other that you will generate for maybe sharing outside. And when it comes to PDFs, so basically PDFs are something that when you receive them, you can still open them. I mean, you may be using Linux or you may be using Windows. Let us not go deep into it, but PDFs are in most cases quite okay to manage. You can always open them. You don't need any paid software. So if you have to move away from PDF to your own local computer, when you download those files from, let us say, Google Photos, or not Google Photos but Google Drive, PDFs will be fine. The next type of files will be the Google Doc or Google native formats, basically mainly document or slides or maybe sheets. The good thing about these formats is that when you download when you download from your Google Drive, the most simplest thing that you can do is go to a specific folder and then click on the download, and it will create a zip for you. And when the zip is with you, that zip will have these native Google formats converted to their Microsoft equivalent. So things like document will be a docx file, slides will be, I believe, PPT, and sheets will be XLS. And you can always open them because Google will do this thing for you. And to open those files, you can use LibreOffice, which is wonderful. And by the way, I have been using, of course, LibreOffice for all my personal needs, and in fact also for communicating with other people. And I think LibreOffice is really successful. It has been successful, I believe. In the beginning, nobody knew how to open ODT files, but nowadays I think everyone will accept those files. So it is always good to see open source softwares being adopted. Sometimes I work with people where I am sometimes looking at their screen, during those screen sharing sessions, and it is really good to see that a lot of people, and I never really expected those people to have LibreOffice. They have LibreOffice on their Windows computers, and I think LibreOffice is now quite widely used. Of course, there is no comparison. You can't really expect everyone to use LibreOffice, but the good thing about Google native formats is that when you download your folder, the entire folder, it will do the conversion for you to Microsoft equivalent, and you can always open them in your LibreOffice, and it works really good in my opinion, because LibreOffice will be able to open your docx file or Excel sheets in case you want to still continue use them in future. So the next day is, of course, I'm just trying to think. So sometimes you have images. So images are fine. I mean, because you can always find plenty of softwares that will open images for you without needing any specific paid proprietary software. Then you also have, especially in my case, I also have a lot of text files because I have always tried, for some reason, good reason I think, from the early days of my usage of computers, I have always tried to keep everything in text format because it was always convenient. I mean, I have used, of course, for majority of my computer life, I have always used Linux, but whenever I had to work on Windows, I knew from the very beginning that if I save it as txt file, then I can always open it on my own computer. I can actually open it anywhere. So text files are fine because when you download your text files, Google will take care of those files for you. But apart from these formats, I think there are some formats that will and might require some specific software. But in case you have been using online Google formats for documents, slides, and sheets, don't worry about it. You will get the docx equivalent or PPT or XLS, and you can always open them in LibreOffice. So in my opinion, I think you should not worry about the format that you will lose the ability to open those files. Now, talking about basically how to download. So let me just try to write it here so that you can also I'll publish this as a blog. So for PDF files, I'll just write it very quickly. There are plenty of free softwares for Google native format. Use LibreOffice. I think this is fine. So maybe I can just make, okay, so let us try 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. These are the most common file formats. Okay, so for images, plenty of free softwares, and for you can open them anywhere, anyways. So conclusion, do not worry about the file format. You will not lose your ability to open your files. And I'm talking about, of course, Google Docs. How to download. So I think there are a lot of ways. I mean, if you search online, you will find plenty of ways, but the most simplest and cleanest way is to download is to use the or I should just I don't really want to repeat myself. Way is to use the download feature, and you will get a zip, and you can always open zip files, right, in almost any software. What else? So how do you, so of course you have files on your local computer. Now what next? Of course, continue to use, I think when you manage your files yourself and you have plenty of files in text-based format, then trust me, you will never run out of space. On my laptop, the ThinkPad that I'm using right now, it has 120 GB. I, of course, don't keep everything here. I try to move it from this computer to another computer, not really computer but hard disk. I usually have like 2 hard disks always attached to my ultra base. So I always try to move files, especially my videos or big files. But when it comes to your own personal files, I don't really think if you don't really have videos, then I don't really see any reason why you would need like terabyte of data. And in majority of cases, for majority of people, I think your computer, I think, it has enough space already, so don't worry about the space. And so thinking is, of course, one. Thinking thinking, how do we think? So let me just write it here. How do we think? And what I'll do, I will try to share my thoughts. Ensure that, come on, I think I'm not able to type today. Okay, ensure that you have backups across backups and some redundancy. Okay, so simple thing. Number one, and I think you should try to take control of your files. If these are your files, then try to take backups yourself manually. There is no harm in doing it. Of course, there are ways to automate it. There are ways to, of course, do it automatically for you, but make it a habit, in my opinion, to build habit to take backups yourself. I mean, this is a very simple thing. You should do it. If you have, like, let us say, a hard disk, get it. I think always have 2 hard disks. One for, of course, the main backup. The other one is like a backup of backup. And I think in reality you should have 3. I think there is like a 3-2-1, 1-2-3 rule. But by yourself, by at least 2 external HDD. I think those external WD drives are wonderful. Usually, 1 TB or I think 2 TB. These days, I think they are not really expensive. Get 2 of them and save it yourself. And there are ways to, of course, there are ways to also make sure that you are taking backups. You can take backups automatically. So let us say if you have 2 computers. I mean, I have I think 6 computers with me, because I need 6 computers. But usually I work on 2. Oh no, I usually work on 3, like my own for just for me. And I do have one more for my daughter, and there's one more and one more. So I think I have 6. I think I need to count. But anyways, I have multiple computers. So basically, if I have 2 computers and I want my files, like my files, the files I care about, to be synced across different computers, then the best thing that you can do is, of course, you can use Dropbox or you can use Google Drive, which we are trying not to use. So I use SyncThing, which is wonderful. You need to learn how to set it up. It is extremely simple to use, and in my opinion, anyone should be able to do it. Install it today. You can actually also use your SyncThing app on mobile, so that when you take pictures, so of course I take a lot of pictures, and although I try to, I mean, I'm a big fan of physical connectivity. So when I have a lot of videos or pictures on my phone, I just use because I charge my phone, and when the phone is connected to my computer, I take a backup manually, because it takes 2 seconds or maybe 2 minutes or maybe 5 minutes. But doing it using SyncThing will work. It works. I have the setup always ready. But when you're doing things over Wi-Fi, it is not going to be fast. And I try to do it using a cable. So another tip: prefer physical connection over Wi-Fi. And I'm not really talking about everyone. I mean, I know people have like good network, and of course, when you have good network, you can of course do things much quickly. But I think majority of people uh, don't really have wonderful. I mean, you have like your Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, but your router, and you have multiple devices connected to your router. They all have, they're all connected to the same Wi-Fi network, and there will be a network, but it is never going to be as fast as the actual physical connection. So always find ways to connect your phone to your computer, or if you have hard disk, connect them to your actual computer and take a backup. And for taking backups, as I mentioned before, for syncing files, you can use SyncThing. And I think if you don't have like massive files, SyncThing will do the job very quickly. And at the same time, I also use rsync for taking the backup of the backup. So I usually have like if I try to explain you how my backup strategy looks like. So it is very simple. I have my one computer. Let us say one computer, or I should say my laptop. So my laptop is connected to, of course, backup 1, which I also connect to my backup 2. So basically, I do this. So this first connection is basically using like physical connection, and I basically use nothing but my hard disk directly connected to my ultra base or my USB port, physical connection over USB. Now backup 1 is also connected to the same computer. Backup 2 is connected to the same computer, but I use rsync, and I usually do it every week or every 2 weeks whenever I remember. So this is of course my backup strategy. It is not really a strategy at all. It is nothing but taking backups manually. But what I'm trying to say here is that when I have a lot of files on my computer, and I know that my computer storage, my 120 GB is running out, whenever it reaches 70%, I simply move the files. And the way I name my files, if you remember, I made one video about naming files. I use timestamp, and the biggest files that I normally have are the videos. That is it. So I run a couple of commands and I move them. Simple. It takes very less time. I do it sometimes every day if I can. I move the files, my videos, but I try to do it once a week, because then I have some like a bunch of videos that I have to move. And apart from that, for my files, like all the personal files, it could be a PDF, or it could be whatever document that I'm working on, or my org mode files, I simply try to again, whenever I can, I use SyncThing, because SyncThing works wonderfully well for small files, because I don't have to worry about videos getting transferred over my local network. Although they will move, they will be copied, but it takes a lot of time. So I use SyncThing mostly for my personal files that are not big, like videos. And what else? I think this is it. So this is what I try to do for my files. And I think when you are following some some practices or I should say when you have this habit of making sure that you take care of your files, I think it will give you a lot of peace of mind in long run, because you always know that okay, this particular laptop is uh, is my main machine, but I also have the other laptop. So basically, my other laptop will have the files that will be transferred over sync thing. So laptop 2 and laptop 1. And by the way, this particular sync thing is also configured on my third laptop. So basically, my personal files are always saved for me and synced on other computers. If you remember, I made one video on portable org mode. Like I always used org mode. So I have like a folder which I sync across multiple computers, and for a long while, for a long time, I was using Dropbox for syncing that particular folder, because Dropbox used to work really well. It still works really well across all platforms. Although now I think syncing is fine. I mean, for actually syncing the files, you can actually use syncing and it works fine. And because on my first laptop, this laptop, I have all my files, my personal files, which are anyways synced to laptop 2 and laptop 3, because I don't really use because this particular laptop is always connected to the ultra base, so I don't have to. Although the whole idea of ultra base is to basically don't worry about the connections. Every time you come home, you can just place the laptop on it, and the laptop will of course be connected to your other screen, so it will save time. It is much more convenient. But I use this laptop as like a workstation. It's like my proper workstation. But I also have one more ThinkPad, which is usually in my living room. So when I go downstairs, I open the laptop, and when I'm having my evening drink, I open my laptop, and my files that I was working on are synced for me. And it is wonderful, because I don't have to worry about, because sometimes you have to continue the work from where you left, and you maybe are doing something and you need those files with you. Although I can always go upstairs to this computer and find my files, but because I have this setup of syncing using sync thing that will do the job for me. And for my big files, or basically taking the entire backup, I use nothing but physical copy and paste using nothing but cp command or rsync command. You can actually use rsync command to also copy, which I anyways use to basically mirror my backup 1 to backup 2. I do have plans to set up RAID, which is not a massive requirement for me, because I do a lot of these things anyways manually. Setting up a RAID makes sense, but I think for majority of people, although I think I think I am definitely a power user when it comes to using computers, but I try to keep things simple. I think for me, my objective is to make sure that my files are with me and they are copied to other locations, like my other laptop or hard disk, and that is my objective. I don't really do things always to satisfy my geeky desires. Although I do want to set up, I mean, if I get a chance one day, I will definitely set up RAID, and I'm actually thinking of buying like a low powered home server. Maybe I'll buy a Think Center. You can actually especially in UK, you can actually buy really good deals on old Think Centers online, and I might buy one, or maybe I'll buy a server. I'm not really sure, but I think for the time being, if you're like me, if you have files, I'm sure you have files because you are using computer. If you're watching this video, most likely if you follow my channel, I think most likely you are a computer user, or maybe you do things on Linux, or maybe you do things on Emacs, and you want to, of course, make sure that you have your files well managed. And I think these practices should be like long-term, lifelong file management practices that I follow. And this particular video is also in line with the other video where I talked about how you should name your files, and of course the overall idea is to keep your files with you. That is the ultimate thing. And I try to follow these practices not only for my personal files but also for my websites, because I have a website. In fact, I have a couple of websites, and I try to minimize the usage of social media. I always syndicate. So whenever I have something to share, I share it on my own website and then I share it elsewhere. And I think this whole idea of owning your content, owning your files, owning your photos is like a fundamental thing that I think we all should try to follow. I mean, of course, there are a lot of platforms that will let you collaborate, but I think they trick you to use their platform for free for a while, and then they want you to pay, or maybe you will run out of space and you anyways have to, because you're so used to using those services, which I'm not against. I think because I also use them, because they, I think, do solve a problem for a lot of people, and I think there is nothing wrong in using those services. But I think wherever possible, if you can, try to own your own files. So that is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. I will also post this on my podcast, because I think in this particular video I am not really showing you any tutorial or not really showing you anything on the actual computer, although I'm sharing my screen right now to make notes, but I will post this as a blog and also as a podcast. So have a nice day. Bye bye.